Another episode of Wrestling with Stereotypes. Kel Dansby here, and today we have an amazing guest, the well-rounded, multi-talented, and Wrestling with Stereotypes alum. She was on the first live show we did. First ever, Marti Belle. Thank you for joining us today. Thank you for joining me. Andreas could not make it today. I am riding solo, so thank you for sitting down with me.
You're very welcome. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you for bringing me out to Vegas for Wrestling with Stereotypes. The first one we did, which was a really cool experience. It was awesome to meet everybody on the panel, people that I hadn't met before, and just super happy to be here. Super happy to be talking to you again.
Yeah, it feels like, to me at least, that was like yesterday, but we've been through an entire pandemic. It's been 2.5 years. So much has changed, not, just for the world, but for you as well. A lot has changed in 2 years.
It's interesting because I was trying to think about it. I was like, when was this? I was like, I know it wasn't last year, but everything feels like it was last year. I feel like I want to say, like, oh yeah, it was a year ago, but it wasn't, because 2020 went by so fast, but also so slow. Like, so many things happened in such a short amount of time that it doesn't feel like we only had 365 days. It feels like we had, I don't know. It feels like it's been so long, but at the same time, it feels like no time has gone by whatsoever.
Yeah, I mean, we were so stagnant, right? Like, everyone was kind of inside. We were sitting in one place that it sometimes feel like, yeah, we were just all together last year. It's like, wait, no, that was 2 Mays ago. Like, it's 2 years ago. And it's like all of last year was a wash. We're just doing a redo. That's all it is. We're in redo mode this year.
And, it's so interesting to think of, because obviously I didn't get to travel as much as I normally do last year. I didn't get to do as many shows. But at the same time, I still feel like I got to do a lot. I got to accomplish a lot of things that I didn't think I would be doing. I didn't think I'd be going back to a reality show in the middle of a pandemic. I didn't think I'd be filming commercials in the middle of a pandemic. I didn't think I'd be wrestling in the middle of a pandemic. But there's so many things that did end up happening that it does. There were so many bad things that happened that you have to take a step back and also look at the good that may have come out of it, or the good moments, because otherwise you're going to get lost in just wallowing in all the bad, negative things that happen. So you have to find those good moments and those little moments of hope that we had, and little moments of joy that we had in 2020, because 2020 wasn't a complete wash. Like, there were definitely salvageable moments in the year.
No, definitely. I mean, a lot of people learned a lot of things in 2020. One thing I did in 2020 was use all of this crazy time to go back and watch wrestling from when I was younger, from when I kind of stopped watching in the mid 2000s or like early 2000s.
Yeah.
Until I came back in like the late, 2009, maybe 2010. So I caught up on a ton of pro wrestling. And it's allowed me to really fall in love with pro wrestling again. We talked to a lot of people on the show. Just, Chris Bay was also on the panel.
Yeah, that's one of the people that I met for the first time as well.
Yes.
Chris, Kaz, kind of think. I think they might have been the two only, besides you guys. They might have been the only two people on the panel that I hadn't met yet. So it was pretty cool to connect with those people, and they're people that I still talk to, the people that, like, we, comment on each other's stuff, like, just keep up with what's going on in each other's lives, seeing all the cool stuff that Kaz is doing, seeing Chris and at Impact killing it. It's been cool. Like, it definitely brought a lot of people together that maybe wouldn't have met otherwise, or wouldn't have become friends otherwise. So that was definitely, not to cut you off, but that was definitely a very cool
No, I love it. That's how we feel. It's like, it's cool because we watch this stuff from afar. We're journalists. We have to cover it. We got to be in our media realm all the time and doing like standard interviews. But that was a panel where it was like, no, we can all just be who we are. We can be fans. We can just chop it up. We can tell the truth. We can talk. That one, our second Wrestling with Stereotypes panel, we've had Sonny Kiss from that one on the show and talked to Sonny. We had Faye Jackson not too long ago, and Faye's incredible. Shout out to Faye, who's announced her retirement.
I know. I'm so sad.
I just saw a match with you and her. I was looking up stuff for this show, and I saw a match between you and Faye pop up, and I just had to sit down and watch the match.
So Faye and I realized, well, one, we're wearing the same gear. She used to come out to Milkshake, which I used to come out to Milkshake when I was first in WSU, so around 2010. And then when I moved to KC and started doing, NWO and all that, I got original music, so I moved away from Milkshake. But as soon as I left, I went back to Milkshake. So it was so weird. Like her and I were like, we need to tag. Like we can't face each other. We just need to tag because we had such like instant chemistry that I was like, we would have so much more fun tagging. And unfortunately, we didn't get to do that. And unfortunately, that's not going to be able to happen anymore because she did announce her retirement. But I'm really happy that I got to meet her, really happy that I got to work with her, and excited to see what she does next. She's a super smart woman and super talented and does so many other things outside of wrestling as well that I'm excited to see, if she still maintains I feel like she's not going to move away from wrestling. I know she stepped out of the ring, but I feel like she's still going to there's probably going to be a gray sweatpants battle royal next year as well. Like I definitely see that in the future for a while.
It's a genius idea, by the way. Like she struck gold with that idea. And she's just a uber talented person that even if she doesn't perform in the ring, she's a value to the sport of professional wrestling. Like whether it's in the back, everyone we talk to just talks about how great she is in the locker room and like how her presence is
she's
back there.
She's a good person to be around. She's got such a good energy. Like sometimes even if someone's not active in the ring or even if they're not involved in in producing or valeting or managing or whatever, just being around, there's certain people whose energy you want to have around regardless of if they're just there to say hello. It's somebody that you're really happy to see, and I feel like that's definitely going to be somebody that's definitely going to be a role that Faye is able to fill for years to come.
All right, let's jump into you, right? So we talked about a lot of other stuff. This is about you. Let's take it from the top. We were both born and raised New York City. Tell me what it was like growing up in New York. I've told my stories plenty of times. I'm sure the people watching know about that, but it's such a unique experience, right? There's that saying, if you can make it here, you can make it anywhere. And that's a saying for a reason. What was it like for you growing up in New York?
So I grew up uptown. I grew up in a very Dominican neighborhood. It's not Washington Heights. It's actually the neighborhood right after Washington Heights. We are the forgotten neighborhood. It's actually called Inwood, but most people refer to it as Dykeman, which is because it's our biggest street. So most people know it as. And we're at the tip of Manhattan. Is as far north in Manhattan as you can go before you get to the Bronx. But we were literally a stone's throw away from the Bronx. My best friend grew up across the bridge in the Bronx, and I would walk to her house. I could be in her house in 15 minutes. I grew up there with my grandmother. I spent my summers. So let me backtrack real quick. Long story short, I was born in New York. When I was a few months old, I moved back to Dominican Republic, where my parents are from. I lived there. There's pictures of me in New York when I was like a baby. So at some point I must have came back, but I officially lived in Dominican Republic until I was 7. When I was 7 years old, I moved back to live with my grandmother Martina, who raised me. And it was such an interesting thing because whenever I would go to DR, I would, I'd live by the beach and I'd get to go to the farm and I'd get to do all this stuff. But then I came to New York, and we've talked about this, like I've talked about this with a lot of people. The streets are literally your park. That is your playground. Like I grew up, I learned how to rollerblade, I learned how to skate, I learned how to do everything right outside on the sidewalk. We have really wide sidewalks as long as my grandmother could see me out the window. That was like the rule. My grandmother had to be able to see me. She had to be able to stick her head out or call me, and I had to come running. If I didn't come running, I was in trouble. And it was just such a unique and interesting experience, like growing up in New York. And I'm sure everybody who grows up in New York has a different experience because, like, for example, my middle school, my elementary school were blocks away from my house. But then to go to high school, I had to take the subway like 45 minutes each way. I went to school all the way downtown in 14th Street. I went to school at Washington Irving, which is a school that's the building is still there, but the school is not a school anymore. It's been divided into a bunch of different schools. And so I got to do so much cool stuff. I got to experience so many interesting things. I was really heavily into music. And I had a lot of friends that were into music. So like I got to go see concerts at CBGB's before it closed down. I got to like just experience so many cool things and like form this amazing bond with so many cool people, which eventually and then I went to acting school in New York after high school. I played volleyball, I played softball. So I also got to see a lot more of the city because When you go to public school in New York, you don't have a field and you don't have like you are literally I learned how to pitch in a little tiny ass gym. And then we would literally like, all right, whoever was done, whoever had classes that was done first would literally leave the school and go sit at one of the public parks and literally just plop down and to claim a spot because we didn't have our own field to practice on, our own field to play on. So I got to see a lot of New York like that. Then I went to acting school, which eventually led me to pro wrestling. All comes full circle.
From acting school to pro wrestling. It's crazy though. You mentioned that. Like, I feel like a lot of people growing up in New York, we've talked to Kaz from Staten Island. Like, Faye randomly moved to New York when she was like 18. She was like, yo, I just want to live there. So Faye got her start in New York as well. There's so many people who go through there, and a lot of people have that same story. I feel like people who've never been to New York or people who didn't grow up there, we've talked about this on the show before. There's this idea of what you're supposed to look like, what you're supposed to sound like when you're from New York. But I'm like, yo, all of my friends are eclectic. Like, everyone is wild. Like, people go to acting school. People, you're on the train by yourself at 15. You're seeing
13,
weird
well,
stuff.
14, because my birthday is late in the summer. So yeah, at 14, I was riding the subway at 7 in the morning by myself. Like, I remember when I first like realized I was gonna go to school away from my neighborhood, because my neighborhood had everything. My neighborhood had, we had our bank, we had our church, we had our schools, we had a movie theater, we had everything. There was no reason to leave the Heights or to leave Dykeman. So when I'm like, oh, I'm gonna like get on the train for 45 minutes each way, like what? But it just becomes a part of like you're a New Yorker when you can sit down, close your eyes and fall asleep, wake up and be like, oh, my stop's next.
Yep.
Like your body just becomes trained to it. And it's so interesting. Like, I don't think I have an accent. I feel like I've obviously everybody has some sort of accent, but I don't really think I have a heavy New York accent. I feel like I lost a lot of it when I went to acting school. They corrected a lot of like New York isms that I had, and like the way that I all of my THs are pronounced as Fs. So like I would say it's my birthday. I'm gonna go to the bathroom. I'm with him. Like I lost a lot of that. But the second I go home or the second I'm around my family, I feel like it just starts slipping. And the same thing happens when I go to DR. When I come back from DR and I've been speaking Spanish for a month straight, my accent comes out, my Spanish accent comes out. And I don't think I have a heavy Spanish accent, but there are times when I say certain words that I'm like, Allison Kay always laughs because of the way I say literally. Because she's like, you sound, I'm like, yeah, I literally said this. And she's like, oh, you literally said this? I'm like, yes, literally. Like there's just certain things that, and certain words that still come out. Like, thankfully, I don't sound like Eddie Kingston because I would throw up every day if I sounded like Eddie Kingston. But like Eddie has such a heavy New York accent. And it's so funny. He's from Yonkers. He's literally from like 20 minutes from where I'm from. And I still think that both of us sound so differently. And there's so many people in New York that, say coffee, say bagel, say all of this. And there's people in New York that don't. Like, it is interesting to see different people and see how everybody like we all grow up a little bit differently. I don't know, it's definitely an amazing experience. And when you're from New York, I just realized wearing a New York hat. When you're from New York, man, there's just something so special about that city. I haven't lived in New York in a very long time, but I love it. I love going home so much.
Oh, it's amazing. Like, it's too expensive to live there. So when I got hired at ESPN, I lived in Connecticut.
Yeah.
So it was such a quick drive. I'd take the hour drive, go down, see my grandma, see the fam. I go back to the block where I was raised, just go hang out on the block, say what's up to everyone. And you just feel like you never left.
Yeah.
Like you feel like you're right back in to the same place. It's weird though. Like some people in New York, like stuff doesn't change. I noticed like my life changes a lot moving away and stuff will change. Everyone that is on the block that I grew up on is on the block that I grew up on. Like the same grandparents, same parents, same, like my friends, like everyone's just gotten older, but the same people live in the same houses. Like you pass that stuff down, not that much changes.
It's so crazy though, like yes and no, because yes, like when I go to my block, there's still so many people that I recognize. And it's crazy to see people that I remember when they were little kids, seeing them be older, seeing people be parents, seeing people, raising their kids on the block that we grew up. But it's also, it blows my mind because, when I grew up in a predominant, it was a Dominican neighborhood. We had one Black family, we had one Russian family. Everybody else is Dominican. Like, we had maybe a couple of Mexican kids in the school, like in the elementary school. We had one kid that was half white. That was it. Like, it was just a very comfortable place. My grandmother never had to learn English. My grandmother lived in that neighborhood for over 50 years and didn't learn English because she didn't need to. So it's so weird to like be walking down the block and see a Starbucks and see a Taco Bell and all this stuff that you're just like, damn. And then you walk two more blocks and you're like, oh, okay, yeah, the pizza shop is still there, the same pizzeria that I used to hang out, when I was a kid. So it is nice to go home and like still have that sense of familiarity. I don't even know how to pronounce that word. When things
familiarity. I got you. Familiarity.
When things are familiar, but I love taking people there. I love taking my friends. Like Allison has been to New York, to my neighborhood a few times. We've taken her to eat, at the spot in Dykeman. We've taken her to eat empanadillas. We've taken her to eat. Like, it's awesome to be able to go home, and I'm looking forward to being back there as soon as possible.
By the way, you and Allison, my favorite tag team on the in DC. Like, you guys are great. The chemistry is great. I see you guys just genuinely hanging out with each other all the time.
That's what makes, I feel like, the best teams is when there is legitimate, like when there's actually chemistry. And that's exactly how it happened. Like when we were working at NWA, we started off together, and then we were kind of feuding. We're kind of on opposite ends. The last ever episode of Power that we were on, the second to last, because I was on the last episode, but the second to last episode that we were on, she, like, we kind of started to make up, but it was kind of left open-ended. And then the pandemic happened, and her and I were just like, let's just make this happen. Let's just do it. Like, we can't keep, and that's something that I've realized, not just in wrestling, but in anything, but especially in wrestling. There are times when you have to take the reins in your hand and make it happen. If you want something to happen, you have to do it yourself. So we were like, you know what? We're a team now. And then Prazak was like, hey, you guys want to, team at the collective for Streamer? We're like, yes, because we're a team. And we have wrestling tag moves together. And we're a team. And we have entrance and we have gear. And we made it happen. And it's been a lot of fun. And we're looking forward to hopefully having more shows popping up soon that we'll be able to team. I'm debuting at Mission Pro on May 1st, and Allison's worked there, so hopefully we'll be able to bring the Hex down to Texas.
Oh, that'll be so much fun. Again, I'm a genuine fan of you guys. To go back to you, and we'll get a little bit more on the background. And like you said, you went from acting school to pro wrestling. But before we jump into that, I have to know, what's your favorite Dominican dish? What is your go-to? Like, every now and then, I got to remind people during the show, it usually comes out once or twice. My super Puerto Rican side comes out from being in New York. I just made a pending yesterday with arroz con gandule. So it was popping for Easter over here. I was cooking everything, but I also love Dominican food, so I got to know what your favorite.
Well, Dominican food and Puerto Rican food and Cuban food, it's all very similar. There's so many similarities. It's so funny that you guys say gandules, we say guandule, but it's the same freaking thing. So my favorite breakfast, let's start there. My favorite breakfast is definitely 100% mango con queso. Like,
okay, mango is my favorite dish.
Don't even talk to me about not, or janiquecas with cheese whiz on them. Man, but oh my God, mango con queso. I am dying. It's so hard to find plantains out here in Kansas City, but I am dying. When I go to New York, I have to go to La Casa del Mofongo so I can have my mango for breakfast, because you get mango with cheese, or your lo tres golpe or whatever, and you get a coffee for like $4.95, and it's a big ass serving. So 100% shout out to Mofongo House, sponsor me so I can go eat there every single day. I love moro de guandule, which I don't know. Like, I feel like you guys probably have something similar. It's literally just rice that's cooked with the guandules in it. So it's probably arroz con guandule, but we just call it moro.
Okay, yeah.
We just call it
literally my arroz con guandule.
And the best is when they put a little bit of coconut in there. So moro de coco con guandule. Ooh, don't even. Oh, with. Or if you're in DR, but you have to be in DR for this. Fried fish from the beach. Like, if you get a chance to go to DR, not to a resort, if you get a chance to go to DR, if you get a chance to go to Boca Chica, you get a chance to go to Caleta, you get a chance to actually go to like in actual little ass restaurants, get fried fish. I usually actually get it with coconut, so mine's not fried. But just go somewhere and be like, yo, they do pescado frito, and if they say yes and you can get whatever, it's chef's
Oh,
kiss. Amazing.
I tell
I'm starving.
everyone.
Now I'm starving.
I just recently brought my wife to Puerto Rico for the first time. So we like got off and we were driving to my grandma's house because I rented the car, we were driving, and I pulled over. Like you get out of San Juan and there's like this bridge, and I pulled over on the side and there's like food trucks, but they've always been there. And then I was like, yo, we're going to eat. She was like, what? I was like, I got to get a bacalaito from this spot that's right here. She was like, what? And I got her a bacalaito and an acapuria de hueye, because I'm allergic to shellfish, but I got her de hueye, so she had the crab acapuria, changed the life. Yeah. that was it. But you got to know the local spots. So that's why it's always good to like, one day I'm going to the DR. If not been, my grandfather goes like once a year. We have family out there. I'm going to go.
I literally just finished
have a blast.
My brother lives in Puerto Rico. My brother and his wife and their 2 kids live in Puerto Rico. And I keep telling my brother, I'm like, man, I have to go back. I actually just looked up plane tickets recently, and they weren't that expensive from Kansas City. So I was like,
they're not. My kids live in Kansas City. I fly from there all the time. It's not that bad.
Wait, what? Who lives in Kansas City?
My kids live in Kansas City. I lived in Kansas City for several years, like in 2010. That? I don't think so. I don't know how it didn't come up last time, but my kids live with their mom. Their mom is still in Kansas City, my ex-wife, and my kids are like raised in Kansas City. Yeah, when I lived there, I lived in Lenexa, Kansas, because I went to KU for a second. But yeah, their mom lives now in Raytown?
Oh yeah, that's not that far. That's probably like 25 minutes for me.
Yeah, so I go and pick up my kids all the time.
Once we get done here, I have to go out to Overland Park. So,
shout out to Overland Park. I went to Johnson County Community College for a second. Shout out to Overland Park. But the mall there, the mall is legit. It's the only mall I go to.
Yeah, yes.
Yeah.
Oak Park, right? Oak Park Mall? Is that called? Yeah.
They have like the first Chick-fil-A. And I always used to hit Chick-fil-A up in like 2009. I was like addicted. Yeah. So my kids live in Kansas City, so I have to pick them up and we fly to Puerto Rico. So it's an easier flight than like Vegas to Puerto Rico. So I just go pick them up
across the country.
Yeah, pick them up and go from Kansas City to Puerto Rico. We do it all the time.
Okay, noted. Yeah, no,
yes.
I really want to go back. I've been to Puerto Rico twice. I really want to go back. One time I actually took the ferry from DR, which was like maybe like $100 or something like that. And the person who booked it like super last minute. So I had to sit the entire time. It was like a 12-hour trip. But they actually sell like rooms. So you can actually have like a room and a bed and all that. So like my parents like doing that or my dad likes doing that because then he can take his car. He can take
yeah.
And then he has a car when he gets to Puerto Rico. But another cool, like you were saying, it's always nice to go with somebody who knows the island and knows the place, because I've taken Allison, not that I've taken her, but Allison has come to DR with me twice now. And she's gotten like a legit experience. Like she's gotten drunk, like, and then gone to the chimney trucks after. Like she definitely has lived the DR experience, not just, and we've done the resort thing, but she's also really gotten the experience of being like in the Dominican Republic. And I'm so hungry now.
Yeah, me too. I feel like we are 20 minutes in. We talked about food and more food and more food. So after this, we're definitely grabbing something to eat. But again, let's get to pro wrestling and your pro wrestling journey. Yeah. So how'd you then go from acting school to I want to be a wrestler? Because in New York, you could do this. It can happen in like 2 seconds. You can I walk into this place. Yeah.
So I grew up watching wrestling. When I moved to New York from DR, my cousins lived right next door. My cousin Richard, Christian, and Maciel, they lived literally the apartment next door to me, and they used to watch wrestling. And so they would come over. My grandmother would take care of them while the parents were working and on the weekends, and they would put wrestling on. And I didn't really watch wrestling. I remember watching wrestling like once or twice when I lived in Dominican Republic with my dad, and then I started watching wrestling and just completely got captivated by it. I say that there are two things that helped me learn English quicker. It was watching Chips love Eric Michael Estrada, and watching wrestling, because we used to watch wrestling every night. And so then, like a lot of people our age, I think, once I got to like high school, like, mid 2000s, I was just kind of like, oh, I'm not into this as much anymore. I was playing sports. I was involved in volleyball. I was involved in softball. I was doing something every single night. So I wasn't home to watch wrestling the way that I was before. So I kind of put it out of my head. I just stopped watching wrestling. Like, oh, that was a cool thing I used to watch when I was younger. Whatever. I graduated from acting school. I went to the American Musical Dramatic Academy. I was gonna take a breath before I say it. I went to AMDA, New York, and when I graduated, one of my roommates one day, she was like, "Hey, I saw this casting call on this website called Model Mayhem, and they're looking for like girls, like valets, basically. I didn't know that's what it was called at that point, but she's like, they're looking for girls to walk down to the ring with the guys." And I was like, "Oh, I used to like wrestling. That seems interesting. Sure, I'll come do it." So I went audition. They really liked me. They called me for the first show. They saw that like I knew what was up. Like I could follow along what was going on, whatever directions they gave me. So eventually I kept coming back for more shows. Eventually they put me in charge of the girls, and I was like, man, this looks fun. Like I want to do this. But at that point, like I was in the place that I was at in my life, I wasn't able to dedicate the time that I want to dedicate to it, because it was in Brooklyn. It was over an hour from my house on the train. I wasn't gonna half-ass it. I wasn't gonna do, go to training once a week. No, that's not me. That's not what I wanted. So when the cards kind of lined up, I ended up falling headfirst into it, literally and figuratively. And I was training 3, 4, 5 times a week, down at Gleason's, and then eventually started doing shows. Eventually, Tina San Antonio and I became a team. We started working for WSU, and kind of just started like, you know, the ball just started rolling from there. A lot of opportunities started coming our way, and eventually I left New York. But by then I kind of already started making my name for myself on the indies. So even though I left, I was still able to come back to New York and work, for NYWC, work for WSU. And yeah, that's the long story short ish.
What was it like taking your first bump? We always hear these stories where people are like, ouch, or sometimes people don't come back. We hear stories of half the class quitting, just taking their first bump. What was it like?
I remember, so when I first came in to do to valet, I remember this specifically. There was one guy, which funny enough ended up being one of the guys that really helped train me. He was like, "Hey, what's up?" And didn't like even like really talk to me. He just like waved from afar, didn't like whatever. After the third or fourth time I was there, he's like, "Yeah, we're so used to girls coming in and out. Like he's like, I don't even take the time to know them anymore. Because like, what's the point? Like, you become friends with these people and they leave." So I was like, "All right, cool." Um, yeah, man, the first bump sucked. I was so small. I was maybe like 103 pounds or something like that. So I was really, really tiny. I had no muscle whatsoever. So my body just wasn't conditioned, for wrestling at that point. And my neck was already like, I've had neck issues my entire life and before wrestling. So I wasn't taking care of my head. I was bumping my head so much. It was rough. And there were days when I was like, I'm never going to get this. I'm never going to understand how to do this. I'm, I say this all the time. I don't think I'm a natural athlete. I think it's something, I'm a natural entertainer. I'll say that, but I'm not a natural athlete. Like nothing comes easy to me. There is no sport that I've ever played that I've just shown up and been like, oh, I'm the best at this. I've had to work hard at every single sport that I've played. I've had to work hard at every single thing that I've done. But that's the thing. I'm willing to work hard. I'm willing to do it. If something I'm passionate about, I'm willing to put the time in. So yeah, that first bump sucked. I remember all those first bumps and how horrible they were and how much they sucked. But over 10 years later, I'm still here. So
You stuck around,
I
like you
did.
said, continue to make a name for yourself. One person that you were able to work with earlier in your career was Jazz, and she's just a legend in the sport. And what was it like having someone who'd been through so much, someone, we'd watched on TV growing up, someone who's so iconic, and just it was like 2 or 3 years into pro wrestling and getting to work with her and learn from her.
1 year.
One
I don't
year.
even
Wow.
wrestle. I started wrestling. Technically, I had my first match in November. It was actually probably about a year of me being in. I had my first match in November. Yes, in November of 2009, I had my first match. And then in March of 2010, we debuted for actually maybe it was a little bit over a year. We debuted for WSU in March of 2010, and then by that November, Tina and I had won the titles. And then I want to say that it was probably like January or February of 2011. So I had like a year and a half in, and all of a sudden I'm being told like, hey, Jazz is actually going to step in, and you guys are gonna win the titles tonight. Like you guys are gonna defend the titles because technically I was a champion. So technically I am a 2-time WSU champion. I've only lost it once. Just saying, just putting that out there. Once again, every chance I get, I'm gonna put that out there. But yeah, so we ended up winning the titles in an uncensored rules match, which also was a match that kind of like helped establish us as a team at WSU. I think the match that established me as a singles wrestler was when I wrestled Jessica Havoc and won the WSU Spirit Championship. But before then, this made people see like we were more than just the pretty new girls. Because I think a lot of people saw us as like these young girls, especially at that point me, because Tina wasn't there for that match. Everybody just saw me as this like young girl. I mean, I was what, like 21, 22. I was super young. Like I said, man, I was so small. I was so tiny. I looked like if a strong wind came, it was taking me, you know? So I think that it was so amazing. And it kind of, it legitimized us at WSU, and also made people be like, oh, like, you know, Jazz is working with them. They're the real deal. Unfortunately, that's the only match that we ever got to have, because a bunch of things change as, you know, car services change. A bunch of different things happen backstage, and we were not able to team up anymore. But I don't know if I'm allowed to announce this yet because they haven't announced it, but I will be working with Jazz very, very soon. It was supposed to be this month, but thankfully I had a booking already. So starting next month, I will be getting to work, or at least I get to see Jazz more. Like, man, I tell you, when I get a text message and it's like, hey, girl, it's Jazz, I'm like, whatever, you know, Jazz is texting me, no big deal. And she's like, yeah, girl, haven't seen you in so long. Like, really looking forward to having you here, this, that, and the other. And I'm just like, Jazz, whatevs. But really, really looking forward to working with her. I don't know if I'll get to wrestle her soon, but definitely that is one of the matches that's on my bucket list. And, you know, she retired for a while. So I was like, damn, that's another match. Like, I'm never going to get to wrestle Molly Holly. I'm never going to get to wrestle Jazz. And now Jazz is back. Maybe Molly will also make a return. I don't think so, but we'll see.
Listen, she's in the Royal Rumble every year now. So I feel like
basically, I need to get signed to WWE. I need to be in the Royal Rumble, and then I'll get to wrestle Molly Holly. Like,
easy.
That's it. I'm going to have this freaking light right here in the middle of my forehead. I'm going to look like freaking Two-Face. It's the light coming in.
You're good. You're like off to the side. So it doesn't look great. Look at that. Okay. Framing.
Just sit like this.
That's a pro move. So you do that. Then where a lot of people, you know, started seeing you was TNA. And you go over to TNA. You're part of the Dollhouse on TNA. And then I feel like by this time you get there, and it was a group where it instantly made an impact from a character standpoint.
No pun intended.
From a character standpoint on a lot of people. What was it like getting there and saying, like, I have to make my stamp? They put you with this group. You've always kind of been great in tag teams, though. Like, credit to your personality.
It's because growing up, I loved tag teams. I don't know that I can say, like, I don't think I'm like a tag team specialist. Like, I can't tell you, be like, yeah, I know all the cool tag moves. But I've always been drawn to tag teams, like, you know, Edge and Christian, the Hardys, 3D. Like, there's so many teams that I was drawn to. 3 Count. Like, I remember that, like, 3 Count was one of the first groups I was ever really into. Like, I was always into tag teams or, you know, multi-person groups. And then, I don't know, I've kind of always found myself in a tag team. like throughout like the heights of my career, it's usually been a tag team, or like very memorable moments of my career have been a tag team, which is interesting because it's been a lot of people that I really love and respect, and a lot of girls that I'm still friends with, a lot of people that I check in with all the time. But it's so interesting because Impact was my first contract. My first major contract was with Impact. It was the first time that I actually got to work for television. It was the first time that I got to see how like big productions were ran. The first time I had to have dark matches. I really like I busted my ass for 2 years. It was like 2 years of basically of tryouts with, and I'm not just talking about wrestling. By the time I got signed, I think I was 5 years in. It was like 2 years of me trying to get signed. It was 2 years of hearing, no, not yet. You're not ready. We need more. Do this, do this, do this, do this, do this. But I kept at it. And that's what I'm telling you. Like, when I want something, I'm going to work for it. I'm going to keep working for it. Whatever note you give me, I'm going to come back and I'm going to be like, okay, you told me to do this. I did it. What's next? What's next? What's next? And there's so many things that I wish there are times when I'm like, man, I want to go back to Impact just to show how much I've grown. Because there's so many things that I look back on that I'm like, oh man. Like, if I could redo this promo as the person that I am today, or as the wrestler that I am today, like, there's just so many moments where I'm just like, I could have done this instead. But hindsight, you look back, and I feel like I feel like that's good. You should always be able to look back and be like, oh, now I could do this better. You're growing. You should be looking back at stuff and being like, man, I wish that this would have happened differently. But it was definitely a great experience. It was my first international wrestling tour. We got to wrestle in the UK, and definitely a place I really enjoyed. I was there with a great group of girls. I was there with a great locker room. I really enjoyed my time there.
We've had Gail Kim on the show, and Gail just loves it and raves about the locker room experience. By the way, they have women's tag team titles now.
I
You know,
know.
just in case you're looking to make a
I
move
know.
somewhere,
Hmm. And I
it's a
mean,
good
not that
time.
Allison Kay is a former Impact champion or anything.
Stuff may align. I'm
You
just putting
know,
it into the universe.
just throwing it
You
out
know,
there. We'll see what happens. We'll see what's next.
um, one thing that we talked about when we had you on our live show that I kind of want to revisit now, just a story for everyone, is you mentioned that when you started, you used to straighten your hair all the time.
Mhm.
And it's weird because like your hair, it's just such a part of your look now to like everyone who sees you, or sometimes you throw in the braids like as a change up. Like it's really dope, but you rarely rock your
You're
hair
so
straight.
versatile.
Rarely do I see you with your hair straight anymore, but you said you used to do it all the time to kind of fit the mold of what people wanted you
Yeah.
to be as a pro wrestler. What
Um,
made you change that? Why'd you break that?
I'm trying to remember exactly when that moment was, and I don't know what it was. I don't know. Um, Anytime I had a big match, so like even that match that I had with Jazz, if you watch the beginning of that match, my hair is straight. By the end of it, it's not, because I got soda thrown on me. And the second my hair sees water, it curls. So that was a horrible, stupid idea. But anytime that I knew I had a big event, anytime I had a big match, I was straightening my hair. It was something that was conditioned into me when I was at Johnny's. There was a producer there who helped to produce um, Johnny's show. And I remember the first time I ever did anything with them, my hair was curly. And like, I take better care of my hair now, and my hair looks so much better now than it did when I first went natural, when I was first trying to understand, how to deal with my hair, because I spent so many years straightening my hair because that's how I was raised. Anytime we had a big event, anytime we had anything like that, my hair was straight. So eventually I decided, like, you know what? I'm going to stop relaxing my hair. It's killing my head. It's literally hurting me. I literally would have scabs in my head from the chemical burning me. So finally I was like, you know what? This is me. This is what I'm going to start doing. Well, I remember I did one show, and this guy literally told me, he was like, I prefer your hair the other way. It just looks more professional. Like, this just doesn't look professional. So I was like, okay, you know what? Like, I wasn't even wrestling yet. I was managing still at this point. So I'm like, this is a veteran telling me what to do, telling me that this isn't professional. I was like, you're right, dude. Like, you're right. Like, this is not a good look. And then I don't know what happened. maybe it was my ex who was kind of like, I like your hair like this. And I was like, okay, I'll start wearing it like this. I don't know. I honestly don't know what it was, but I did it. And it's so freeing. It's so freeing to just like be yourself and you know, and there are so many, it's so weird. Like there's people that come up to me, like I distinctly remember at Shimmer, this girl came up to me and she was like, hi, I'm, you know, blah, 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 introduced herself. And I was like, hey, nice to meet you. And she was like, I went natural because of you. And I was like, what? She's like, yeah, I saw you at Shine. I saw you at Shimmer one time and I really liked your hair. And so I went natural because of you. And I'm like, what? And actually a wrestler. And this is what blows my mind. This is crazy. I had wrestled this girl. I'd wrestled her several times and we're cool. Like we're friends or whatever. And one day, I don't even know why she messaged me this, but she was like, just so you know, seeing you on television made me realize I could do it. And I was like, what? She's like, yeah, she like did her big chop. She like cut all her, you know, she cut all her straightened hair off and started going natural. She's like, yeah, once I saw girls that looked like me on TV, it made me realize that I could be one of those girls too. And I was like, it's very humbling. It's definitely such an amazing experience to meet people that are like, I was inspired by you because of this. And I'm like, man, I'm literally just doing me. I'm literally just being myself. I'm literally just rocking the hair that the Lord gave me. And like, it's making people realize like, man, this could be pretty too. And I don't know about y'all, but it's real cute.
Oh, crushing it today. You got the little
Dude,
side.
here's the crazy thing. So I took a picture and I sent to my friend. I was like, my hair looks so short today. He's like, oh, did you cut it? And I was like, no. Look at the magic of curly hair. No, I did not cut my hair. I literally just combed it a different way today. And so, yeah.
Wow. It's so different. Like you mentioned, stuff changes so much. Like my daughters now, if they straighten their hair, it's once in a blue moon. Like my daughter just naturally just wanted to be like, no, I'm just doing natural hairstyles and all this. And I was like, yo, cool. I don't know how to do that though. So as long as you can like figure this out by yourself, like she's 15 now. So I was like, as long as you could figure this out by yourself, you do whatever you want. And then she really did. She went on YouTube, which I think is like the best asset in the world.
That's cool. Yeah.
And she like learned how to do all her natural hair and stuff by herself. And her generation is just kind of like acceptable. But when I met their mom was like you said, straight hair all the time, always like every 2 weeks she was at the beauty parlor getting it done. It was like clockwork. I'm not even sure if I've ever seen her natural hair. Like she would not let me see it. And then now it's a thing.
Like at the end of the day, this is a personal choice. If you decide that you want to straighten your hair and that's what makes you happy, you want to relax your hair and that's what makes you happy, girl, more power to you. Like I don't judge girls that are natural. I don't judge girls that relax their hair and don't want to be natural, want to straighten their hair. It's a personal choice. But being a kid and being told that your hair is ugly, I remember being like 9 and going to get my hair straightened at the Dominican hair salon, as one does, growing up in New York. And the lady literally told my grandmother, she's like, if you don't relax your hair, she's not welcome back here. What are you going to do? I got to have my hair straight. It's my first communion. My hair has to be straight. So lo and behold, I start getting my hair relaxed. So that was like 9 years old. So being told as a kid, your hair is ugly, you need to change it. That's what I have a problem with. If you as an adult want to do what even as a kid, I don't know if as a kid, I don't know. I don't know how that would work because I don't want to put chemicals in my kid's head. But like, if you as an adult decide, man, I just don't like this. This isn't me. I prefer to wear wigs. Girl, go do you wear your wigs. I prefer to have my hair braided. I prefer to have my hair straight. I think it's a personal choice. And the fact that when I first started the business, that choice, it wasn't taken away from me, but it was kind of like, you're doing the wrong thing. And you want to do the right thing, especially when you're starting out, when you're super green. You don't want to piss anybody off. You want to do what's best for your career, what's best for the show and all that. And I don't think that's what's best. I don't know.
No. And like you said, all it takes is a few people showing that you can do it. So you may not have known that. Like we talked to Chris Bay when he was on the show and he was like, yeah, like people kind of looked at my locks like a little weird. But then I think he was like, 3 months later, Kofi Kingston did the blonde tips on his locks, and people were like, "Oh no, you look like Kofi. You're fine." And then now it's professional. Now it's good. Like same thing. You appear on TNA or you appear on the Mae Young Classic. When you were there, and just your appearance and going out there and rocking the Dominican wristband, shout out to you, it just gives people a different perspective of what's okay, what's professional.
Another interesting thing that I forgot is that part of the reason why I got my opportunity at Impact was because of a writer who was there who had met me at Ring of Honor. He had met me at Ring of Honor, and he was like, "Oh, whatever, pretty girl, whatevs, like no big deal." I distinctly remember the day that I met him. My hair was straightened because I was trying to look professional because I was going to a Ring of Honor show. Like I wasn't working. I was just there to hang out and see my friends. But obviously you're there trying to make a good impression, whatever. As soon as he started seeing pictures of me with my natural hair, he said that's when he took notice. So when they were, building the dollhouse and when they were talking about that, he instantly thought of me because they wanted girls that were different. They wanted girls that were not the normal. And I stood out to him because he's like, and he told me, he's like, when I first met you, I thought you were just another pretty girl. As soon as you started wearing your hair curly, your personality came out. You became a completely different person. So I don't know, sir. Back in 2008.
Yeah. Hey, listen, that's why Ring of Honor has its track history. Shout out to people there. Because no, that's smart. Like to be an individual is what's key. And again, that's what's kept you around for 10 plus years now. Now it's weird. Marti Belle, the veteran pro wrestler.
It's insane. I don't understand how that happened, when that happened, to have younger girls like reaching out to me for advice or like being in the locker room and having people ask me questions. Like the last time that I worked for AWE, for Atlanta Wrestling Entertainment, the promoter literally came up to me. He was like, "You're in charge of the girls, take care of that." And I was like, "What?" He's like, "Yeah, you're producing the girls' matches. You're producing." I had to produce my match. I had to produce, like, it was like a tournament, so I had to produce all the matches. And like, he literally just was like, "Yeah, you got this," and like walked away. And I'm like, "What? When did this happen? How did this happen? Like, why am I being given the car keys? I just got my driver's license. How?" So I don't know. It's definitely interesting. I had a lot of veterans who gave so much to me. That's all I want to do is pass that forward. I want to give the girls the opportunities that I was given by some of these veterans, or that I earned, with some of these veterans. And it's wild. It like blows my mind when people are like, I'm like, yeah, I've been wrestling over 10 years. Like, holy cow, like this is insane. But here we are.
Hey, time flies when you're having fun.
Right.
What do you see in your future then? Like personally, what is next for you? What is your goal? Let's start inside pro wrestling, because we're going to wrap up talking about you outside of pro wrestling, which is just as promising. But in pro wrestling, what's next? Like, what's that next thing that you want to work hard and achieve, since that's your MO?
I want a contract. I'm a lot older than I look. Obviously, we've been talking about how long I've been in wrestling. I think a lot of people forget how old I actually am and how much damage my body has taken for, 12, 13 years now. But I still think I always joke about it. I'm like, I have one more run left in me. I think I want to sign a contract. That's where my head's at. I want that 6-figure deal. I want, that's what I'm working for right now. That's where my head's at. I'm going to sign at my gym. We have this wall where we write down like our goals for the year. And I wrote 3 goals down. And the last one just said wrestling contract. And that's what I want. I think I would love eventually to, maybe move into like producing, maybe work. I've always loved working behind the scenes. I've done stuff as a correspondent before. I would love to do more of that, but not right now. I still think I have a little bit left in me, and there's still a little bit of gas left in the tank. And I think I can climb this hill. That's what I need right now. It's one more contract run.
Oh, I think it's going to happen. And then you'll say one more contract run, and then one more contract run.
Like just like a few more. I don't know. Yeah.
I'm telling you, I talked to Gail Kim. We talked to her. We had her on the show 2 months ago. And then she was like, "Yeah, I was retired. I'm fine. I'm doing stuff in the back." And then they're like, "Well, do you want to have one more match?" And she's like, yeah, I had to take it. So it's one of those things where it's like, yeah, there's always more room, more growth. So yeah, you're just starting. This is just the beginning. Uh, let's talk about some of your stuff outside of the ring, though, because you're like reality superstar royalty in all Spanish areas of the world, U.S. too. Like, so when I look into it, I was like, okay, when we met for the first Wrestling with Stereotypes show, I think you had just done like your first stint on what it's
Exactly.
Telemundo. Yeah.
On Telemundo, yeah.
Yeah, it's
And
on
it's actually
Telemundo.
Telemundo US. It's actually Telemundo US. So like my parents in the Dominican Republic couldn't watch it. They would have to find
Really?
like a feed on YouTube, or they would have, yeah, it's so funny. Like the last time that I went, I had so many friends that were like, "Oh man, we wanted to see it." And I was like, "Then why don't you turn your TV on?" And they were like, "Wait, we could see here." I'm like, "Yes, it's Exatlon USA. We were the first ever. My season, my first season was the we were the first ever season to do it in the US. So it is in Spanish, it's on Telemundo, but it's on Telemundo US. It is strictly in the US and obviously Puerto Rico as well, because Puerto
Well,
Rico is
yeah.
part of the US, which a lot of people seem to forget. But yeah, so you could see it in Puerto Rico, and you could see it you could see it in the US, but like you couldn't, like in Mexico you couldn't watch it. You could watch it in Mexico if you lived right on the border of like Texas and the US, and you would, or like California. If you were in one of the border towns, you could sometimes get it if you got your like my sister in DR could watch. Yeah, one of my sisters could watch it because she had an American cable. I don't know, it was like something weird, and so sometimes she could watch it because like I don't know, but yeah, if you in the US you could watch it. So that was my first season.
How did you get into that? So how did you? For people who don't know, it's kind of like the challenge on MTV.
It's like the
So
challenge meets Survivor meets Ninja Warrior.
yeah, the
It's like,
challenge has completely swagger jacked it, by the way. So
yeah.
the challenge used to be like, oh, you had to be on the Real World or Road Rules to be on the challenge. No, now it's more like that show, to the point where this past season of the challenge, I think Leo Rush was on there.
Leo Rush was
So
on it. Yeah, he ended
yeah,
up
they
quitting. I still watch it. Like I'm a diehard challenge fan. That's actually one of my goals. I would love to be on the challenge. Like I don't know. I don't know. I'd have to like look at my contract and like, or like kind of have to circumvent my contract because it's a similar competition to what I just did. But I'm sure it'd be all right. So if challenge producers, you're listening, book me for the
let's
next.
do it.
Yeah. So Leo ended up leaving. He left on his own. He was doing all right, but he just wasn't. He just had to leave. Like he had personal reasons for leaving. But I love the challenge, and so I've always been interested in kind of shows like that. And I've always loved reality television. I've always been a big fan of it. And I had auditioned for Telemundo's version of Big Brother. It was called Gran Hermano, but same concept as Big Brother. I auditioned for them, and I actually ended up like being flown to Florida, all of that. They really liked me. I was a backup, and I was not. Basically, I would start if somebody got kicked off, like something happened, or somebody didn't pass their background check.
Okay.
Cool, whatever. But the producers really liked me. So the next year, one of the producers hit me up and she was like, "Hey, I have another show for you. Do you like to cook?" And I was like, "Yeah, I cook, like whatever." She was like, "All right, Master Chef Latino." And I was like, "Listen, lady, when I say I cook, I mean like I can throw some shrimp in a pan, like, and make pasta. Like I'm not going on a Master Chef. Like I'm not embarrassing myself and going on Master Chef. Like no." So then the next year, she messaged me. Everything happens for a reason. I'm a very firm believer in that. Timing is everything. And NWO had just closed. NWO closed in May. I'm like, okay, in April. I was like, great. I moved to Kansas City for this job. And now I live here. Now I have a lease here. Like this is where I live now. In May, I got contacted by Telemundo again. And she was like, listen, we have a new show. It's for athletes. Are you interested? And I'm like, sure. What, like, okay, same kind of thing as last time. Um, and then yeah, I auditioned in June, and by July I was flying to the Dominican Republic to film the show. And it was an amazing, life-changing experience. Another thing, I first got there, I was not doing well. I was not good. And I kept working at it, and I quickly became a fan favorite, just because I just wouldn't give up. Like even if I was losing, even if I was super behind, I would catch up, and I would score key points for my team. And I lasted 8 weeks on the show. And so I made it halfway to the show. And then I got invited back the second season for 2 episodes. And then in the middle of a pandemic, I got invited back for season 4, and I almost won. I actually ended up being the MVP of my team, and I ended up in second place from the women, which was, I think it's so hard because I think about that moment all the time. I know the exact moment that I messed up, why I didn't win, but yeah, maybe I'll get a 4th
Just
chance.
next time. Yeah, we're going for it. You're so close.
Yeah.
No, that's amazing because you see that so many times, like wrestlers or anyone really, right? We all get put into this box of you are just this.
Yeah.
Like me and Dre talk about it, but like, you're just a journalist. It's like, no, we do other things. Like we like having shows like this. We like being on stage, believe it or not. Like I like being on stage.
Yeah.
No, I can't sing to save my life. And I chose not to rap because I can't do that either. So it's like, how do you get on stage as a journalist? Like, yeah, you know what? Let's actually have a show. Like we have our voices. We can also tell stories. But so many times people put you in a box and you've already just expanded so far out of the normal realm of that box. And you're on the commercial that people see everywhere.
Yeah. I've gotten to do, so here's something that I've realized too is, and the pandemic definitely brought this to light even more. I think I'm going to get emotional talking about this, but I feel like I'm a wrestler. That's who I've been for the last, decade plus. That's who I am. When people ask, I'm a wrestler. Even if I'm working at a bar, trying to make ends meet, I'm a wrestler. I've always said that, when NWO closed, I had to take a job at a bar because I had to figure out what I was doing. But anytime somebody asked me, what do you do? I'm a wrestler. Sometimes I'm like, oh yeah, I'm an actress too. I do act, whatever. But it's always been I'm a wrestler first. So when that was taken away from me in the pandemic, it made me realize like, I can't just be a wrestler. I have to do other things because I'm not wrestling at the moment, but I'm still a wrestler. So I've been, obviously, I went to acting school. So acting's been something that I've always loved. I stepped away from it because of wrestling. Wrestling fulfilled that performing role for me for so long. But when I came home from the first season of Exatlón, I got an agent here in Kansas City. And I've been very fortunate. Pre-pandemic, I was working so much. I've done like 3 commercials for Hallmark, including a Star Wars one that was really freaking cool. I've worked for Sprint. I have this commercial that aired during the Super Bowl it was weird. I had one of my friends message me. He was like, hey, I think I just saw your commercial. It aired in that what is that called? In that region. It didn't air
like that market.
Yes, it aired in that market in PA though, and that was the year that like Philly, I think, won. So like it aired during the Super Bowl in Philly during a big freaking game. But when I came back from the collective, actually, I got to film a commercial for Hotels.com. Funny story about that. They told me not to wear makeup and like just have my hair like whatever. I washed my hair, I put it up because they were gonna do my hair and makeup when we got there. They pick out our outfits. They're like, oh, you're gonna wear this, that, and the other. They're like, all right, we're ready for you. So I go upstairs to where they were shooting because everything was everybody wore masks and everybody was like, nobody ever touched me. I was not close enough to anybody. They're like, all right, stand here, and they're like, all right, you're doing this, and I'm like, oh shit, can I curse? Is that all right?
Yeah, you're fine.
Oh, I was like, oh, oops. I was like, oh, you guys aren't even gonna do my makeup? Like my nails weren't even done, and I'm like swiping through a phone, and you see my hands? My mom's gonna yell at me. Like, what is going on? So whatever, we do this commercial, and I was told the role that I was portraying was Latin American / Brazilian woman. Very racially ambiguous, happens all the time. Then I get a message one day from a guy in England, and he's like, hey, did you do an advert for Hotels.com? And I'm like, what? He's like, yeah, I just saw it on my TV. And then I started getting more. And then I started getting some from Finland. And then I got one from Sweden. And then I got some from Germany. And I'm like, what is going on? So yeah, this Hotels.com commercial is like airing literally all over the world. And it's nuts. It's amazing. I love being on set. I love it. I love it. I love it. I want to do more producing. I want to do more directing. I want to do all that stuff, but um it's just it's wild. Like I'm so happy that I've gotten to do as much work as I've gotten to do, especially during the pandemic. I got to do some backstage corresponding for Titan FC in the Dominican Republic for the UFC Fight app. Like, I've just gotten to do a lot of really cool stuff, and it makes me happy to know that, like, if God forbid tomorrow the wrestling door closes for me, there are so many other doors that I'm gonna just knock down and walk right through.
Quick mention, Jorge Masvidal going for the title again. You,
Yeah.
so I think the second time I saw you, you were in Vegas for the Masvidal fight,
Yeah.
where I think he kneed Ben Askren's face into the crowd like 5 seconds into the fight.
I am so glad that so I was dating somebody at that point, and the fight right before he was texting me, and so I missed the finish of that fight. So when I saw the Jorge's fight was up, I was like, hey dude, I'm gonna text you later. Like, I want to watch this fight. Thank God. Because if I would have been on my phone for 2 seconds, I would have missed it. Literally 2 seconds, I would have missed it. And I know that Jorge has become a very controversial figure over the last few months. I know that a lot of people have different opinions about him, but I see him as the person that I've known for, 3 years now, as the person that I got to spend so much time with. And, I think a lot of people, obviously, everyone's entitled to their opinion. As somebody who knows him personally, I have my opinions on him, and I'm really happy for his success. I'm really happy for everything that he's accomplishing. I know where he comes from. I know why he does what he does. I know, like, who he's fighting for every time he steps into that cage, and I respect it. And I really hope to see him walk away. Watch him be the one to dethrone Usman. I met Usman, super nice guy. Actually, was actually very kind to me, very nice to me. I don't think he knows Jorge's friend when he was very nice to me. Met him and his brother, both very super kind, very nice. Great athlete, but I think it's time we get a little Caribbean action in the championship.
Yeah, it's game bread time. All right. Nah, it's amazing. I want to thank you for, taking an hour out of your time, sitting here, talking to me, having an amazing hair day. Look at the
I'm
curls.
very happy. It's like I've been messing with it, so it's starting to. I didn't let it dry before I started messing with it, but she's cute. She's hanging in there.
No, I appreciate you. Everyone, make sure you check out Marti from anything, whether it's acting, wrestling. Marti, you said you'll be back in May.
Well, I'll be wrestling at Heroes and Legends in Indiana, but May 1st I will be making my debut for Mission Pro. May Wait, I have my agenda right here. May 22nd, I'll be making my debut for a new company, and then I'll be working with them pretty consistently. That hasn't been announced yet. June 4th, I have another booking. It's crazy. Like, this is the most that I've worked in so long, and I'm so happy. I'm so excited. But you can keep up with everything Marti Belle on Instagram. I'm most active on Instagram. I barely use Twitter. I'm most active on Instagram, martibelle.com for merch, patreon.com/martibelle for exclusive content, including, like, just ridiculous. There's always, like, a bunch of really cool stuff on there, photo shoots, my training. There's always guest appearances. Like, I just posted a photo shoot yesterday with Allison, and we have another one dropping this week as a little spicy shoot from the beach. But yeah, there's a ton of way to keep in touch with me, and we'll see what's next.
Yes, everyone, make sure you support. Always good to see Marti's hijinks with Allison.
Yes.
So make sure you guys support on Patreon as well. Make sure you guys continue to follow the show Wrestling with Stereotypes. You can follow Andreas and I's other show, The Corner Podcast, wherever you guys listen to podcasts as well. Make sure you guys continue to check adfreeshows.com. Great content every week. We are here every 2 weeks. We appreciate you. Enjoy WrestleMania week, whether you're watching main WWE product or all the indies. Support indie wrestling. Support Faye in the gray sweatpants battle royal. If you don't want to support it, make sure your wives support it. This is an
Yes.
amazing event. There's something for the women. It is going to be fun. My wife is already having me order it on Fight TV. She has the biggest crush on Scorpio Sky after he did our panel. And I was like, listen, you can't. The guy was funny, I understand. So every time I see Scorpio, I'd be like, yo, you just romanced my wife without knowing it. Like, she has the biggest crush on Scorpio Sky. Yeah, make sure you guys support indie wrestling, all of the wrestling out there. Until next time, though, we're out.